Well, welcome back to another episode of Conversations and Connections, the official podcast of the Family Crisis Center of East Texas. I'm Stuart Burson, the prevention coordinator for the agency. And with me, some names you're probably kind of starting to get used to knowing. I have Tiffany with us, and Will is with us. We're all part of the prevention team. Hey, guys.
How are you?
Good.
Good morning.
Good morning, good afternoon. Because, Will, some people may be listening to this at midnight.
No, it's bright and early for us right now.
Yes, and poor Tiffany, she's recovering from hitting a deer last night.
Yes, I have the worst luck with deer.
Oh man, but I'm glad you're okay. The car may not be that great, but I'm glad you're with us today.
Thank you.
So you're okay. So, the last time we were together, we were talking about some Christmas songs. We were talking about "Baby, It's Cold Outside," and then we were talking about Santa Baby. So today, what I thought we would do, we'd take a look at some Christmas-themed TV shows and movies. And I have two particular in mind. One thing we're going to be looking at is a clip from The Office, and another from the movie Four Christmases, which I will give Tiffany credit for tuning me into Four Christmases, and that's an old movie. I say an old movie. When was it made? I forget now. I mean, it's not a recent movie.
No, it's not recent.
2008.
2008. Well, for some people, that's a long time ago. For some of us,
Not so much.
maybe not so much. So we're going to take a look at a clip from The Office and a clip from Four Christmases, and just kind of discuss the themes and the attitudes from these clips. And this is something that we do normally on the prevention team, or it's one of the elements that we talk about when we do our presentations. One of the things I do is talk about gender socialization, and I show some clips and as good examples of the gender socialization theme. So that's what we're going to do on today's show. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to pull up a clip from The Office, and then we'll kind of talk. We'll take a minute and talk about that. So here's a clip from The Office. I guess if I need to set this up, the character Michael Scott loves Christmas, and he always likes to play Santa in the office during their Christmas party. Well, this year he comes in dressed as Santa, but one of the ladies in the office has already claimed Santa, and it really upsets him. So let's take a listen.
Here's Santa! Hey, little girl, what would you like for Christmas? Ooh, you have been a very naughty girl, I see.
Michael, we already have a Santa, Phyllis.
What the hell is going on? Phyllis, Jim, Phyllis is Santa.
Yeah.
Phyllis.
Yeah, I told her a long time ago she could do it.
Take it back. That is absurd.
No, I'm not gonna do that.
No, Jim, come on.
I think she'll do a good job.
It's insane. A woman Santa, where does it stop?
Okay. So let me preface this, of course, without video. When he says, "Oh, you've been a naughty girl," and Tiffany, I know you've been watching The Office, or you have watched The Office, because we've been talking about that. I don't know if you know what he's referring to. In this scene, Pam is very pregnant. I mean, she's extremely pregnant. It's so obvious. So in the clip, he points to her belly and is saying, "Oh, you've been a naughty girl." So that's one thing right there that can be discussed. And then the whole attitude about how dare a woman be Santa. And of course, this is a comedy, so it's played very broadly and obviously not to be taken seriously. But I think this is at least a good starting topic to talk about gender roles and things like that. So first of all, just to kind of kick things off, why is Michael so upset with Phyllis playing Santa?
Well, I think if anybody has watched The Office, this is him having a temper tantrum. He's mad because he didn't get his way with Santa, and that's ultimately why he's so angry. But so you can look at this from multiple different ways too. He probably could use some better coping skills and learning how to work through his emotions. But his way of working through not getting his way is to attack. And what he's attacking is a female Santa and saying that's absurd and that's ridiculous. But he's just one big temper tantrum for good old Michael, one of many.
Yeah, right. And I think, too, it's not so much, it's kind of revealed later, of course. Is he really upset that Phyllis is being Santa, the woman's playing the part, or is that his excuse for not getting his way because it's his job to play Santa?
Yeah.
So he goes, and of course, Phyllis is Santa, really. And of course, when you first listen to it, you think, well, he's upset because he's not Santa. Then finally he says, a woman, where does it stop?
Yeah.
So,
well, I think, from the bigger picture, it just kind of shows the underlying power and control, and then the tactics men sort of use to rein back in that control, right? So clearly he's lost control over being Santa, and then the tactic he deploys in order to sort of rein back in that control is attack, everyone, including taking this shot at Phyllis for being the woman that's the Santa. Right. So I think from the bigger picture, you just kind of see how it all kind of works. I think in working with men, you see this theme very often over the smallest things, right? Something has upset the balance in their world where the control has been shifted away from them, and then they deploy this whole amount of tactics and sort of to rein that back in.
Right.
And clearly he's doing that here.
Do you think we can kind of extend this a little bit to well, let's say the political scene. Soon we're going to have a woman as vice president of this country, which has never happened before.
Yes.
And I'm really trying to steer away from getting political, and I'm not getting. What I'm getting at is people's attitudes over that. Would some people? Do you think some people did not vote for Joe Biden because he had a woman running mate? Would they have voted for him if he had a male running mate? I'm just throwing this out there, as hypothetical, I guess.
can see that. There's a lot of just how can a woman do a quote-unquote a man's job? And I guess that's where you can compare these two with that is it's always been a man's job. And so you hear the age-old, what happens when she's on her period? Is she going to be able to do things right and things like that? So I can definitely see a little bit of it's just no way. And I guess if you tie that back into this show, it's that, well, Santa's a man's job. And how are we going to let this woman do this man's job? And where does it end? Then we're going to have, I don't know who else you could have play Santa, but...
Right.
What's next? A female vice president?
Yeah. I mean, in his world, it's just so absurd that that a woman could play Santa. Which, let me throw this at you. Let's say, of course, I don't think Santa's going to be at a lot of malls this year because of the COVID situation. But let's say if things were normal and you had a child and you went to the mall and this was going to be your baby's first picture with Santa, you get there and it's a woman playing Santa. Would that upset you?
I don't know how you notice one way or another between all the costumes and the beards, but
well, I think sometimes you would be able to tell maybe.
I personally wouldn't. I'm kind of oblivious. I probably wouldn't notice, but say I did notice, it's somebody in a costume. That person isn't really Santa anyway, whether it be a female or a
it's
male
one of Santa's helpers.
So, yeah, it's not the quote unquote real Santa. So, I guess, what if there was a completely female Santa, maybe like with the Mrs. Claus being Santa Claus, and that where it was very clearly a woman.
Right.
Personally, it wouldn't be a big deal, but I know that's the tradition, and this is how it's always been, and so moving into something different, that would be difficult.
Right.
Transition, because we like consistency. We go towards things that are familiar and that are the same to us, and change isn't very well accepted in a lot of times. So that would be something that would be met with, I'm sure, a lot of animosity, because it's like, no, that's not how it goes.
Yeah.
Santa is a guy. We only have guys play Santa, and that's that.
Yeah, yeah. Will, you're a parent. Would that, in reality, how would that, what would be your
I
reaction
think,
to that?
How do you answer that if your kid was to ask you, why can't Santa be a woman, right? And I think it's just kind of like some of the stuff we've heard at some trainings, like, why can't you eat hot dogs for breakfast, right? Like, why do people not think that you can eat hot dogs for breakfast? I mean, why can't Santa be a woman, right? So it's just kind of this thing that I think Tiffany's speaking to. Is just sort of been this way, and sure, a woman could be Santa, but people don't like that break from tradition. Change is always hard for people. And then you've got this like all-time portrayal where Santa's the man, and then there's Miss Claus, which I hadn't even thought about that, but it just depicts that it must be that way. This is the role for the man, this is the role for the woman. And then of course I think that a couple of things I read before we came in here to talk about this was this the way that how these sort of gender socialization things, they're always framed in this kind of comedic way, right? Which, again, we just sort of would say, well, that's comedy. It's not a big deal. But it is just sort of signaling to us that, the man must be Santa here. And when he's not, he's very upset about that. Right. So,
well, and I think it's different in that scenario. It's an office party. So if we had an office party here and Tiffany was dressed as Santa, I would think it was funny, it was fun, it would be great, right? But I'll be honest with you guys, if I went and I brought my child to the mall to see Santa and it was a woman, I'll be very honest, I don't know how easily I would digest that, because yes, Santa is a fictional character, but the fictional character of Santa is a man. Mm-hmm. And if I'm trying to introduce my child to Santa and it's a woman, and even if they take notice, to me, that would be different. But that's a different scenario, I guess. You know what I'm saying? Now, for Michael Scott, it didn't matter if it was just an office party or what. And I think a lot of that was just his juvenile attitude about, I don't get to play Santa. And I think he was just probably grasping for an excuse. Of course, I like the very end, where does it stop? Now he says, where does it stop? So some people are probably upset about this, and would be it'd be opening to other situations. And of course, I think we've already kind of discussed that. We're about to have a woman vice president. Texas, being the conservative red state as it is, has had woman governors in the past, and nobody's had an issue with that. But I think some people with roles and positions that have traditionally been held by men, even though a woman is very capable of that same role, just because she's a woman, unfortunately, there are people here that will take issue with that just because it's a woman.
Yeah, I think that clearly someone could define the comment as a whole as sexist, and then I think it's so hard to define that sometimes, but the way that we do that through our work is we just look at two things. Is there prejudice against the gender? And clearly there is here, because Phyllis cannot be Santa. And then you combine that with who is receiving the most privilege overall at the time, which would be men, and the gender prejudice plus the power, which is male, equals sexism, right? So I think that you clearly see that that's at play here. There's some gender prejudice that women cannot be Santa, plus men are in control anyway. So then we're going to get this sexist attitude about the whole situation, right?
Yeah, and that's the thing I'm glad you touched on that. Obviously with the risk factors, when we talk about gender socialization, it's the male entitlement. Michael feels like he's entitled to be Santa because he's a man. Mm-hmm. And just as a side note, at the very beginning of that clip where he says, "Oh, you've been a bad girl," you can't tell it in the clip, but in the actual show, He's talking to the character of Pam, who's very extremely pregnant in that episode. So he's pointing to her belly while saying, "Ooh, you've been a naughty girl." And again, that's a whole other realm to dive into of office inappropriateness there, But if you like it or not, and this is another topic for discussion maybe at some point, of a lot of these TV shows using privilege and these attitudes as a springboard for humor.
Yeah.
And I guess that's one reason, and I'm guilty of it. I show clips like this in my presentations. And not saying that these shows are endorsing this type of behavior, but it's just a good illustration of these inappropriate behaviors. And sometimes maybe it does kind of take the edge off the uncomfortableness of the topic if you show a clip from a comedy. Which brings us to our next clip, which is kind of the same thing. This is a clip from Four Christmases, and I'll be very upfront and transparent. I have not watched this movie yet, although I told Tiffany I was going to watch it over Thanksgiving break, and I didn't do it.
Utter fail.
Utter fail. But watching this clip and some of the others does make me want to see it. So in this clip, it's a family. It's a man and his sons, I believe. They're up on a roof trying to install a satellite dish, and they're together for a Christmas gathering. And it's his grandson's going to come down and shout up to him about wanting to play with them, and I think that's probably enough setup. We'll take it from there.
Hey, Grandpa!
Hey,
Come play war with me!
maybe later. Grandpa's busy.
Grandma's boyfriend plays with me whenever I want.
Your grandmother's boyfriend is a first-class ass sniffer, and you can tell him that I said so.
Cotter, go get us some beers, man.
Boy, Dad, sounds like you and Mom really turned a corner there.
Look, I don't want to speak ill of your mother on Christmas, but she's nothing but a common street whore.
Okay, that's great, Dad. Nice restraint there.
What would you call her? What do you call a woman who throws away her career, abandons her kids, and runs off with another man?
What are you talking about?
What do you call her?
Okay, Dad, she was a cashier. That's not really a career. That would fall in the category of a job. And she left you because you wouldn't talk to her. You stopped spending time with her. You completely shut her out of your life.
I fed her, I put a roof over her head, and I never lied to her face. I spoiled her, is what I did. And let that be a lesson to you kids about being honest with your wives. You can't spell families without lies, am I right?
Amen, Dad.
Yeah.
That's right, Dad. So there's several things to analyze, I guess, in that clip, and it kind of goes back to the same thing we've been talking about: is male entitlement, unhealthy attitudes towards relationships in general, and things like that. So obviously, and the grandpa is Robert Duvall. So he's obviously upset about his ex-wife dating again. And I have not seen the movie, but I'm just going to assume that he may not know this guy really that well.
It's actually...
Does he?
His ex-wife's new boyfriend is Vince Vaughn, who's this main character. That's his best friend.
Nice. Okay.
Just a little piece in there.
So, right off the bat, he has nothing but derogatory things salty language, I guess, to say about the ex-wife's new boyfriend. And, does he know him? Is he just automatically just so bitter he's going to be talking negatively about these things, and then calling his wife a common street whore just for having a boyfriend.
Just because he's mad that she
right.
Walked away. And
well, and I think that kind of goes, obviously they're divorced. One of his sons is there with him because he's kind of, well, Dad, looks like you and Mom really turned a corner there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I think it's just sort of kind of rife with the masculinity from the beginning. I mean, the kid wants to play war. You know, we talk about that with like boys and girls growing up. You know, immediately the boys like, come play war with me. And how old does this kid sound? You know, maybe he's 10. And then, of course, you know, it's like he's working on a car, sounds like. And then it's when there's like a conflict, he's like, go get us some beers. You know, it's real just like manly through and through. And I think the one thing that sticks out to me, though, is that it's sort of at the end there is we talk about so much with men, their beliefs about women impact the way they react, right? And I think one thing we see across the board is that men just have this idea that women are mischievous, they're going to cheat, they would throw away a career and their kids and leave it for just being mischievous with another man, which in domestic violence, where we work, we could pick out a lot of women who leave children in a career, but it's not just to go sleep with another man, right? It's to escape like a bad situation or something. But sort of through this, it frames it that all women possess these sort of attributes about them. And that's where men, I think, get their ideas about women just in general, that, you know, they'll cheat, they'll leave their kids, they're just not good people. They have the tendencies to be that way. So I think this just kind of frames that some.
And I don't know, Tiffany, you so much, and by all means, you can answer this, but with Will working with men in the BIP program, do you see attitudes like this that was reflected in this clip?
Yeah, I mean, I think when we ask men to reflect on just their beliefs, which we actually spend a week with them in the curriculum to reflect on their general beliefs about women, period, these things are always coming up. Yeah. I mean, it's just a repeat theme that women just want money, they just want to sleep with other men, they want to sort of trick you in one way or another. And then, of course, as you can see in this, his way of handling that is saying, well, you know, I never lied to her. I kept her fed and put a roof over her head. She should consider herself lucky, right? Like, that's all he has to do to make a relationship work. And I think so often that men believe that's all they have to do. And, of course, when they're demanded more out of them, they don't like that, right?
See, and that's something that I took away a lot was the acts of fed her, put a roof over her head, and the third one that he said. I mean, it's like those are the simplest basic things, and they're important, don't get me wrong, right? The basic ways of living. We need shelter and food and things like that. But that's not enough to sustain a relationship, clearly.
Right. And his attitude is, well, why would she want to leave me? I gave her a place to live.
Exactly.
You know?
And coming across those barriers of, you know, there's emotions that are here and communication that needs to happen and things like that, which are not often taught in men, how to communicate in a healthy manner, how to show emotion, how to talk about feelings and things like that. And so at the point where she left at some point because her needs weren't being fulfilled.
Well, and his son was telling him, Dad, this is why she left you. You know, you shut her out. You weren't giving her any attention, you know. And in his mind, his dad's mind, well, I gave her a roof.
Yeah.
you know, what else would she need, right?
I think it's a huge reality that this is the way that men think. And then, of course, when we look at this, we would automatically forgive that man, right? We would say, look at these things he did. Look at the crazy person she is. He's so justified in doing those things that he gets kind of the pass, right? And I think that's what happens just across society in general is that, well, he went to work, he paid the bills, and, you know, when she got tired of it just being that type of relationship, she went out and found someone else. Now, he's totally justified in all the things that he did, right? And I think that's how we sort of gloss over the questions about men and their role in domestic violence and gender socialization and all of those things we speak about. So.
Right. Let me ask y'all this. These movies, and again, transparency here. I thought that scene was very funny. When I first saw it, I laughed out loud. Working in prevention, as we do, should we feel kind of guilty about finding humor in something like this?
It's rough because, that kind of humor is everywhere. And I think working in what we do, I'm sure there's some things that we were able to watch on TV prior to our jobs at the agency. And now, I can't watch Law & Order SVU anymore. It just doesn't happen. That's not humorous at all. But
still, I get where you're coming from.
Things change
right.
where
Sure.
we just come to where we don't watch different things. But we're human. We like humor. And I think that personally, I'm way more aware of these shows and I'm way more aware of things, and things to me aren't as funny anymore. I'm the Debbie Downer of my family now. Whenever we get together and we watch things and they're like, that was so funny. And I'm like, why was that funny? And they're like, oh my God, you just don't have a sense of humor. And I'm like, I have a sense of humor. I just don't like that humor.
Yeah, right.
But, we still laugh at things. And I think that it's good to be able to acknowledge where, this was funny, but where does this give these ideals that really aren't healthy for people to think are normal?
Yeah.
And being able to have those kind of conversations. They're not wanted conversations, for sure. My family hates having those conversations with me, but they're important, and it's important to be able to recognize. And there's stuff that I laugh at that I'm like, oh, I really shouldn't have laughed at that. That really wasn't that funny.
And I catch myself doing that.
But we're human. And also, even with many trainings as we've gone to, as many presentations that we go to, we're still a part of this society where this stuff is funny.
Yeah.
And it's hard to completely switch from this mode of, I should, all this stuff is funny, and no, none of this stuff should be funny to me, and I shouldn't laugh at it in any way, because there's just still, we live in this society where this stuff is funny, and we're battling that every day with, okay, well, that wasn't really okay, but it's everywhere. That's the type of humor that's out there, and when you start to cut out that kind of humor, you're cutting out television.
Yeah. What? Oh, I'm sorry. Was you gonna?
Yeah, I think that's the perfect take on that. This is just so pervasive. So, you should know the difference. You should spend some time with yourself to know the difference between what's real and what is the comedy. And then, of course, when you have the opportunities to speak about it, you should take those.
Yeah. Well, what I've caught myself doing, like I've gotten on the kick of taking a break from watching The Office for the 12th time probably in a row, and I've been starting to watch Everybody Loves Raymond. Which is even an older show than The Office, but and not just Raymond, but because that's really what I've been watching a lot of lately. And a lot of shows, what I start doing is pointing out, hey, I can use this clip in one of my presentations to illustrate, hypermasculinity, or to illustrate objectification, or unhealthy attitudes about sex, or
I'm not gonna lie, this job sometimes it has so many perks, it really puts a damper on television.
Yeah, no, I get it. Yeah,
you'll stop in the middle. I did that with an episode of Monk once. I was like, oh my gosh, that's I forgot the word for it. But anyways, I wrote down, I stopped the whole episode and was like, I need to show this at work. Like, this is a clip. Yeah, because you're like, work mode.
Right. But I know I thought, hey, I got to remember that. I might start changing up some of my clips, and I need to find that one, So I catch myself doing that. But then sometimes it's kind of like we said, man, should I be laughing at this? And I did that scene from Four Christmases. I literally laughed out loud in my office when I first saw that, because I thought, that is funny. I want to go see that movie.
Yeah.
And then I think, okay, what if this was real life? What if I was with real friends and that exact same conversation happened? It probably wouldn't be funny then. But just, I think if you know a little bit of the backstory and know, okay, well, that's Robert Duvall, and that's Tim McGraw, and that's Vince Vaughn up there on the roof with them, and it's a movie and it's played for laughs, I guess it kind of gives you permission.
Yeah, where you're like, oh, well, this is supposed to be fun. I'm here to watch it.
Yeah, you know
okay
it's
to
supposed
laugh.
to be funny, right? But okay, if I'm up there with my dad and one of my brothers and someone else, and that exact same conversation took place, I think I would probably be maybe a little more alarmed.
Yeah.
That my dad had that attitude towards my mother, possibly.
Oh, most definitely. Those
You know.
are-
So anyway, do we want to wrap this up? Does anybody have any closing thoughts that they want to share? Or are we good? Okay.
I think that this was a really great another conversation, and it's important to know that we're not here just to bash all of these movies and to just say anything like that, because we can be kind of Debbie Downers with stuff. But what we want people to start doing is just kind of think a little bit, and whenever you're watching things, just take a little bit more time to notice and be like, oh, wow, there really is a lot of unhealthy relationships and stuff that we just see day to day. And as we're watching it, it becomes normalized to us, and that can transfer into our personal lives to where we see this, these actions and reactions and words that are being said, and they do become normalized. So whenever we're giving that to our children, I say I don't have a child, but whenever younger children are watching this, they're growing up seeing that, and they're seeing that as normal, and it's okay. Mm-hmm. And so it's just being more wary and just trying to be hyper vigilant on what's out there, because we don't want these unhealthy views on different groups of people to start setting in young and things like that, and just to become that normalized.
Right. And that's one thing I want to do in some of our future podcast episodes is do more stuff with the media. Maybe because we're talking about this at the beginning, maybe just taking one movie and just really watching it all and dissecting it. And of course, with the holiday, Thanksgiving and all that, we just never really had a chance to do that. But in the future, I want to look at maybe some more mainstream movies, or look at not holiday music, but just music, today's music in general, and some of the messages behind it, and things like that. Guys, I appreciate it. Thanks a lot.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. If you have any questions, or if you'd like to add to the conversation, or if you have any suggestions on things that we can cover on the podcast, you can email us at conversationsandconnections@fccet.com. Also, as always, I do want to remind you of our 24-hour-a-day, 7-day-a-week hotline. If you feel like you need our services, or you're in a situation where you need help, you can give us a call at 1-800-828-7233. That's 1-800-828-7233. Remember, be the voice, if not for you, for someone else.